Hello, everybody. My name is Orchidia, and I'm going to be talking to you about racial composition in Arizona and its effect on per capita incomes. Firstly, my research question was, are counties with higher shares of Native American or Hispanic residents associated with lower per capita income than counties with higher shares of non-Hispanic white residents? And I chose this because I wanted to examine the effects of race on economic success and mobility in minority populations in Arizona. In this, my hypothesis is that counties with larger Native American and Hispanic populations will have lower per capita incomes than those with higher proportions of non-Hispanic white residents. And the null hypothesis here is there is no relationship between the share of Native American or Hispanic residents and county per capita income in Arizona. Here, I've listed my data taken from the U.S. Census Bureau. The dependent variable is the per capita income, with the independent variables being either percentage of Native Americans or Hispanics in a county, and I sampled all 14 counties in Arizona. I used a multiple regression test to see the effect of both racial groups on income. The R-squared value was 0.645, making the two racial groups about 65% explanatory for variations in income. The coefficients for Native Americans and negative 224.9 and negative 117.8, respectively, meaning that for every percent increase in that racial group, the county's per capita income would decrease by that amount. The p-values for both groups were also 0.0009 for Native Americans and 0.0549 for Hispanics, making the correlation with Native Americans more statistically significant. Next, I created scatter plots to show the effect of race on income. As you can see, Native American populations have a much stronger negative trend line than Hispanics, which I believe is due to the presence of Maricopa County, home to Phoenix, which is much more urban and dense in population, which could mean things such as a higher cost of living and higher wages that bring up the overall per capita income. Maricopa County has a much higher percentage of Hispanics than it does Native Americans, which is why this skew mainly affects the Latino trend line, as it has the highest per capita income in the state. As we interpret the data, we can see that the data supports that Native American populations have lower per capita incomes than non-Hispanic white incomes. Native American populations have stronger and more significant associations with lower income than Hispanic populations, and some explanations for this include lack of access to education, historical socioeconomic challenges, and high populations in rural areas with less economic opportunities. In contrast, the data also supports that Hispanic populations have lower per capita incomes than non-Hispanic white incomes, but the data shows this negative association as marginally significant. Maricopa County likely plays a larger part in this, as costs of living and wages are likely higher here as the most urbanized county in the state, which may have brought per capita income up in the data. Hispanics also struggle with socioeconomic challenges, access to education, and tend to be immigrants or second generation, which may affect economic mobility. Overall, Hispanics do also have a lower income than non-Hispanic whites, but not as much as their Native American counterparts. Overall, we can see that both Native Americans and Hispanics both struggle economically in contrast to their non-Hispanic white counterparts across the state of Arizona. Some next steps for research would be to examine other data points, such as economic attainment, to explain these differences, as well as closely examine Maricopa County, and to a lesser extent Pima County, as their urbanized cores drive up the cost of living and likely wages as a result, in contrast to rural populations, to really examine discrepancies at a local level.